Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Unlocking Lore, the storytelling live stream in which I, your local friendly storyteller, tells you, my local friendly audience, a story that will make you think, will make you wonder, perhaps see some magic. I hope you have everybody's been having a great day. I know Sam is over there, is starting off his Friday morning with a good story and a lovely warm chai, I can imagine. And let's see who else is here. And it's the Dunadan. Hello, Dunadan. Thank you so much for coming. And Rogue, Tom, that's so nice. Here but tired. Well, you okay, you probably say tired, but here also, you know. But thank you so much for coming. It really means a lot to me. And I do have some news for you today. It is now some official news, which is good because I have been wandering here and tiddling there and kind of wondering what the future will bring to me. But now I have something to share with you. But before I do, remember that I know you guys have subscribed. The ones who are watching me like right now, most likely you have subscribed to this channel and you've probably hit that notification bell. Thank you so much. Everything is in the description below. I know that you've also seen Tabitha's beautiful T-shirt that says be bold, but not too bold, lest your heart's blood run cold," which is one of my really good, one of my favorite dark stories. Well, the story of Mr. Fox that I told with last October. It is going to be 1 year since I started off unlocking lore. Amazingly enough, 1 year since I started telling stories. This is episode number 33 of Unlocking Lore Life. We have journeyed through more than 35 tales. I've had also some really interesting guests. Very few, I agree, but thankfully they were there. We've had Tim Araneta, Richard Marsh, and Marilyn McPhee on this channel. We've also had the writer and story producer, the the film producer, Zach Leary. We've had him on the channel also. Very interesting people, very wonderful people. I'm very, very blessed to have such amazing people around me, and within the storytelling community, there are a lot more people out there. So yeah, it is going to be 1 year. I started off this live stream in August of last year. So even though it hasn't been 52, because there are 52 weeks in a year, so technically it would have been 52 episodes, but we've had more than 35 tales. And I have been counting because right now, up to now, I have not repeated one story. I have not repeated one story yet. And I have been increasing my repertoire for you, the audience out there, and whoever's listening, whoever stumbles across the channel, because you never know, right? So awesome. Well, tonight's tale is really interesting, actually. I've just figured out tonight, as in literally not tonight, but this afternoon, the meaning of this story. Now, this story has been slipping through my fingers. It has not been easy to get into it, even though I always say, and it is true, never tell a story that you don't like. I do like the story, but the complexity of this story is what kept slipping through my fingers like sand or like water. It's a very unique tale because it has many chapters, and I hope I hope you will get it, but the underlying meaning of this tale, I have only gotten to it today in the afternoon while I was thinking of the tale itself. It was a pretty amazing, and I'm like, you know how it kind of, like a little light bulb, just pops up. You say, "Oh my gosh, this is what he or she or it meant." That's what happened to me today. That's what happened to me today with this story, the story of the Sea Maiden. Now, I do have a previous comment from Tabitha, which I cannot see right now through my StreamYards, which is what the platform that I use to stream. But I do think that she did leave a message, a comment saying it would have been one of my favorite tales. And I was thinking, I think Tabitha would have thought differently. I don't know. I don't know. But in any case, this story will be told. I believe it is a story that can teach us, can teach us many things. It has a very, very deep meaning for those of you who are deep thinkers and really delve into what's behind a story. And not only, but also, for example, in movies are stories that are told through acting, but they're stories nonetheless. And um, a movie can be destroyed. A movie can destroy, sorry, a good story. You could have a good story on your hands, but if it's not directed well, if it's not acted well, or if you're trying to push some sort of message through blatantly, it can destroy a very, very good story. And for those of us, I know that a lot of us do think about movies a lot, since we do review and critique movies on our different channels. We do tend to go further than just CGI, or go further than just the special effects, whatever they may be. We go deeper. And I think that this tale should be treated as such. Should be treated as such. Let's go deeper. And this story that I'm about to tell, also bear in mind that whatever happens, everything interconnects. Everything interconnects. So I hope you like this story as much as I do. This is my adaptation, my interpretation of the Sea Maiden, uh, inspired by a Celtic folktale that you can find on the internet, also known with that same title. Um, with much no more further ado, I give you the Sea Maiden.
In a world where legends come back to life and magic is in the air, we gather around to listen and delve deep into the lore. This is Unlocking Lore.
Once upon a time, in a faraway place, where magic happens in those faraway places, there was a fisherman. Now, he was a poor fisherman, and he would go out into his lake, and this time he would go out into the sea and try to catch the fish of the day, which he would sell and bring back to his home. Now, as I said, He was a poor fisherman, so he caught very little, and he grudged about it. Until one fair day, he was out taking out its nets when all of a sudden, breaking out of the water, there was a beautiful sea maiden, what we would call nowadays a mermaid. So maiden with her green eyes peered at him and said, "Do you want more fish? I can get them to you. I can get you as many fish as you want." And the fisherman said, "Well, what is the price? For no lunch comes free." "Oh, just one small thing. Give me your son. At the age of 20, I wish to be with him." Now the fisherman was a good man, but greed started peeling into his heart and said, "I have no son at all." But she doesn't have to know that. So he agreed. And laughingly, the sea maiden delved deep into the water. And all of a sudden, the nets that were casted by the fishermen started to be pulled down into the ocean for the weight of all the fish that he was getting. And like I said, the fisherman had no son. But a few months later, his wife was expecting. The fisherman was overwhelmed with happiness and joy that he would finally have a breed of his own. But what if it was a son? If it was a daughter, it wouldn't have a problem, but if it was a son? But he cast away that worried thought, and he kept fishing, and wow, he did catch some fish, so much that he became a wealthy man within the year. And within that year, a son was born to him, a beautiful one at that. And the years went by, and that son grew into a toddler, a young boy, and a strapping youth. And it was at the age of 15 that the father started to worry about the future of his son, for he remembered his promise to the sea maiden that at 20 she would come and take him away from them. And little by little, that worry started to eat him and his mind. And he would frown at the thought of it. And the son, who knew his father, started to wonder why his father would frown once in a while he looked at him. Until finally, the father confessed how, to be able to be as wealthy as he was, he made a deal with the sea maiden that he would hand him over at the age of 20. But at that time, he had no son, so he agreed. The son knew that the father only wanted to give a good life to his wife at that time. Little did he know that he himself would be born. So he went to his father and said, "Don't worry. We have 5 years. In 5 years, I will train myself. And in 5 years, I want you to give me a sword." But 5 years, my son, I think you should be off before then. What if the sea maiden catched you? Very well. Before my 20th birthday, I will set off. At 19, that gives us 4 years. And at that time, I will train myself and you will give me a strong sword. So he did. Alongside helping his father, the youth trained himself, and he learned some mighty sword skills. And on his 19th birthday, he set off into the world. Now, they lived near a very, very small kingdom. And since the young man, really had no title, he was a fisherman's son, nobody would employ him except for the old, very, very small tasks around. So he decided to go to the palace of that kingdom and employed himself as a cowherder. And on his way to do that, he came across a very, very curious sight. For in the middle of the road, there were three creatures that were babbling and quarreling in front of a sheep's carcass. There was a dog, an otter, and a falcon. So the young man on his steed went and stopped beside these three creatures, and they all looked at him, and they started talking all at the same time that the boy couldn't understand a thing that we were saying, until finally he calmed them down. And the dog looked up and said, "We want to divide this carcass between us three. Well, we can't. Could you do it?" Well, the boy saw no harm in that, so he did. And he divided it with equal shares, but equal to the proportion of each of the animals. So 2 parts were for the dog, 1 part for the otter, and a smaller part for the falcon. The 3 of them were very, very thankful and pledged their allegiance. If any time they would need his help, he would just holler and they would come. And with that promise, the boy went on his steed and rode off to that castle, to the palace, to employ himself, as he once decided, as a cowherder. And he managed to do so. But the idea was not just to receive his wages, no. The king, when he heard that there was a new cowherder, he didn't want to give more money to people who were useless. So he employed him with a certain condition. According to the milk of the cow, that would be his wages. With nothing left, the boy agreed. And day after day, he would take those cows into the pasture, and he would come back. And on the appointed time, he would milk those cows. But unfortunately, there was a dry land, and there was not enough grass for those cows to graze. So one day, the boy, a few months later after he parted, he decided to take those cows further. So he woke up earlier, dressed himself, and went off. He was not a greedy boy, but he did need to earn a little bit more. So off he went. He took those cows further and further and further into the pasture, much further than the grounds of the castle. And he found a very, very green, fresh meadow. So he decided to take his cows there. And wow, that was really a very good option. For the cows grazed all that they wanted, what they couldn't eat in the palace grounds. They fed in those grasses. But little did the boy know that those grasses were magical, because that field did not belong anymore to the king. He was about to find out who it belonged to. And it was around midday when the boy was under a tree just looking at his cows, looking at the sword his father had given him, when he started to feel the ground shaking. Boom, boom, boom. As if giant footsteps were coming, and they were getting closer and closer and closer. Startled, the young man stood up and looked around, and he saw a huge giant in a fury, in rage, bloodshot eyes at how angry he was, and he was charging straight at him. The boy knew that he had come to the giant's meadow. The giant, feeling that there was a stranger on his lands, didn't think and just ran off to kill whoever so much as touched a blade of grass. The boy grabbed his sword, but he knew that just force wouldn't be able to help him. He had to be cunning. So he did. He laid a trap at the charging giant, and before he knew it, the giant fell over, and the boy, without a flinch, grabbed his sword, swung it up, and boom! Chopped off the giant's head. The cows, they were just grazing. Soaked in blood of the giant, the boy went off to the nearest river and washed himself dry, and he started to look around. He went back to his cows and went from where the giant was heading from. And just a little bit further, he saw a huge castle. The castle of the giant, of course. And since he killed that giant, he went in and he started to look around, and he saw jewels and treasures and everything that could possibly entice anyone to grab. But he was not greedy, so he touched nothing of it, just left it alone, took his cows back, and the milk that came from those cows was ever so abundant. Day after day, he would go back to those grasses, and the cows, when they came back, would give more milk, and his wages started to grow. And within a month, he had enough money to buy himself good clothes, to buy himself a nice house. But he didn't. He just put on something a little bit more decent. Not his working clothes. No. He would use those as always, those rags. But he did have something special. For some special occasion, you never know. Now, it was after that month when he finally became some sort of a wealthy young man that one day he woke up to the sound of crying. At this hour, crying? That's so strange. And he got up and he went out, and it was just dawn. And amazingly enough, before his very eyes, the town was out and about. But everyone was wailing. He went to the nearest villager and asked what happened. And he told the story that this very same kingdom was plagued by a creature with 3 heads that asked for a sacrifice. And the lot fell on their own dear princess that year. They had to sacrifice her. And if they didn't, the whole country would be destroyed. It had happened before. To another country, of course. Not them. They unfortunately sacrificed what needed to be sacrificed. So the young man decided to see how this was. He sneaked past the guards and into the palace. And he saw how the king was grabbing on to his sweet daughter, the most beautiful princess, the most beautiful woman his eyes had ever laid eyes on. And he was very sad that this beautiful girl, an innocent girl, would be given to this wretched monster. But beside her was a military man. And he heard him say how he would protect his daughter. And the king said, well, if you protect my daughter, she will be yours in marriage. No worries, your majesty. I will protect her, said the general of the country, for he was a general. And the youth thought, okay, well, then she's saved. He crept out. The general and the princess went on their own horses and left for the lake where the monster with 3 heads were there. And yes, when they got there at midday, the water started to ripple, and out of the water came the most hideous 3-headed creature that you could possibly imagine. And amazingly enough, the great general was so astounded, fear crept into his heart that he cowardly left and ran away. And the youth saw how he had left the princess there, and she bravely stood there, waiting for her fate. When the youth grabbed his sword and went up and swash, killed off the first head. Shocked by the scene, the princess couldn't say a word. The youth grabbed one of the heads, tied it up, and gave it to her. Princess, take this home. Don't tell anybody about me, but take it home. The princess was again, like I said, in shock as she grabbed very, very weakly the head and said, stop. I want to give you something in return. And she gave him her ring. Mounted on her steed, she went back. And when she was going back, she looked to her side and, who was there? But the general, astounded that she was still alive. He was about to run away to another kingdom. And he saw how she had the head with a knot right there beside her steed. Roughly, the general grabbed the girl, pushed her down, and said, you will tell everybody that I have killed this creature. The maiden, with the knife around their neck, agreed. They both went up and they went. The king was happy to see his daughter, but he knew that the second day would be the same fate The second day, it happened again. The general and the princess left. The general this time didn't even stop. He just said, "If you manage to kill it, I'll be back." The maiden stopped and waited until finally at midday, the sea monster came up with its two heads. The young man was still hiding in there, grabbed his sword, whack, chopped off the second head, tied it, gave it to the princess. The princess rode on her steed, went back. And on the way back, she met the general. Again, roughly, he took her down, put up his steed. His knife to her neck threatened that only he had killed the monster. She agreed, and they went. But little did the general know that the princess had given an earring to the young man. The third day, it happened again. The general left, the princess near the beach. The monster came up. The youth came out. Whah! A third head. Out, tied a knot, and the princess gave the third thing to the man. Her earring, her second earring. She too was forming a plan in her head. When they went back, the general and her, the king was overjoyed that he said, "My dear daughter, thank you. General, you will marry him." And the princess said, "Stop. I have my own conditions." "Really?" said the king. "Well, name them." "Two things. One, the man who can undo these knots is the man who actually saved me. And second, I will marry he who has my two earrings and my ring." The general didn't know about this, but he knew about knots. He tried and he tried and he tried to take out the knots of the heads of the monster, but he couldn't. And from the back of the palace, there came a slight cough. "Excuse me, may I try?" The young man stepped forward, and since he had tied the knots, he undid them and presented them to the king. The king was astounded that the general couldn't do it and that this young boy in rags could. And the boy put his hand into his pockets and came out with the ring and two earrings. Furious, the king looked at the general. "You are my general?" Little did the king know that the general was only a coward who would leave his soldiers, and when the massacre had come back, he would come back triumphantly with the sorrow in his heart of all his perished soldiers. And you know what happens to cowards and to greedy people? I say no more. But this story is about the youth and the princess who were married. And to think that everything happened before his 20th birthday, the young man was so happy that, yes, his 20th birthday came by and he didn't even know it. And he and his wife were walking one day near the beach when all of a sudden they heard music coming out from the ocean. Such entrancing music, beautiful. So entrancing that they were entranced. And out of the water came out a beautiful sea maiden. And he looked at the young boy, the young man now, his 20th birthday, reached out her hand. He grabbed it and left his wife. And when the young princess, the young wife, snapped out of her trance, she saw how the sea maiden had taken her husband. And she sat down and she started to cry. What could she do? He saved her. Could she possibly save him? And she stayed there the whole day, crying at her lost husband. When out from behind, she heard an old voice of an old man. Why do you cry, young maiden? She told him what had happened, how the sea maiden had taken her husband. Oh, well, that's easy. Something that you can do is, well, you can lure her out. How can I? She said. With music, said the soothsayer, for that was what he was. The princess thanked him, went back to her palace, and came back with her musical instrument, and started to pluck the strings and sing with such a beautiful song, with a beautiful voice, that the water started to gather ripples, and out broke the sea maiden, happy that she was listening to music. And she said, what beautiful music. Please pray. Keep playing. But the princess said, no, I will only pay if you give me back my husband. Now the sea maiden did have a weakness for music, so she went down and came up with a young man who was still entranced, but only his head. So the princess started to pluck the music, and she stopped. And the sea maiden said, why do you stop? Keep going. And the princess said, I want to see more of him. So the sea maiden took out not only his head, but his torso. And the princess played on. She stopped. Why do you stop? Said the sea maiden. I wish to see more of my husband. It inspires me. So the sea maiden took out not only his head, his torso, but also his legs. And because of that, little by little, the young man started to gain consciousness until finally he saw where he was, what had happened right beside him, the sea maiden, in front of him, his wife plucking at the strings. And he suddenly bashed the sea maiden and ran back. Because of this, the sea maiden was enraged. And instead of grabbing him, he tossed him out and grabbed the woman and said, you will never see her again. And laughingly, she took her way below. In despair, the boy thought, this is all my fault. This is my destiny, not hers. And kneeling in front of the shores, he heard a voice at his back. Again, the same soothsayer that had helped his wife. You can save her, he said. But it's very risky. For the only way to kill the sea maiden is to find her soul and crush it. You must go to an island that is yonder. On the island you will find a white deer. Kill it. And out of it will come out a crow. Kill it. And out of the crow there will be a trout. Kill it. And out of the trout, an egg. That is the sea maiden's soul. Kill that, and she will be finished, and you go get your wife back. And he thought, how could he possibly get there? How could he possibly do all those things? When all of a sudden he remembered the pledge of loyalty of 3 creatures at the beginning of this whole journey. And he started to whistle and holler. They did come. He fashioned a boat and started to sail, to row all the way. And he rowed all night long. And the falcon followed by. The otter swam, and the dog was with him until finally he found that island. And when he got to shore, the minute he stepped out and the dog went out, there was a huge wave that crashed and destroyed that boat. It wasn't a big island, but it wasn't small. So they started to search. And finally, just a little bit further, they saw it. A white deer. And they started to plot as to how to get it. Until finally, they started the chase. The dog from one side, the young man from the other. They started to chase and chase and chase until finally they caught it. With the sword in his hand, he grabbed it and he swung it and he killed that beast. And out of it came out a black crow, which started to fly and fly and fly. The boy whistled. The falcon came in and started to grab it with his claws, drag it down to earth, bloodied up and mutilated. Out of the crow came out a trout that started to waddle until finally, splash, into the water went the trout. And then the otter started to swim and swim and swim and swim until finally he grabbed the trout and gave it back to his new master. And out of the trout's mouth was a small egg. The youth placed it on the soil, put his foot on it, when all of a sudden it said, "Stop!" And out of the water came up the beautiful sea maiden. "Please, don't. If you do that, you will kill me. I will do anything. Please give it back to me." "Give me back my wife," said the young man. And the sea maiden, without thinking, went down into the sea and grabbed up the poor princess. And she threw her onto the shore, splashing and spluttering water out of her lungs. The princess started to breathe normally. The young man saw how the sea maiden tried to actually drown her, and with fury and rage, he stepped and crushed the egg. And with that came a scream so loud that could be heard all the way to the other side of the country. And down she went, never to be seen again, the sea maiden. The young man picked up his wife. They started to find a way out of the island. They created a new boat, pledging never to go back to that cursed place, and always to keep in mind to never pledge for greed anything that any magical creature can give you, for you never know what could happen. Now, Did they live happily ever after? I'll leave that for you to decide. Wow! Oh, thank you so much for hanging in there. Oh, it really was a complex story. This is one that like I said, I started to work on, and it just kept slipping through my fingers. Now you can understand why I have adapted this story to make it a little bit less complex. But I still tried to be as faithful as I could to the original Celtic tale that you can actually find on YouTube, read, like literally read, not told. No. So, thank you very much. I just want to say hi to Dreaming Tabitha. Hey Tabitha, thank you so much for coming. I know I mentioned that your comment was like, it's probably one of your favorite tales. I was thinking, I think I might subvert her expectations. And we have TD in the house. Hey TD, thank you so much for coming. So awesome. And Sam, thank you very much. Always doing it, Dan, giving me claps and applauses. Thank you very much. So tell us your interpretation of the story. So my interpretation is that greed is a very, very big downfall. So greed is what happened to the father. Greed is what happened to the general. This boy was not greedy, so good things came to him. Remember that old folk tales always carried a meaning, not necessarily so like bluntly. This one, I had to think about it while I was working on the tale, and I got the impression that this is something that they were teaching, or they were trying to relay this message. So that is my interpretation of this story. When I found the Sea Maiden, I was thinking that something completely different, and when I read it, I was like, "Wow, this is not exactly what I was looking for," but it's really interesting, really complex. So that's so awesome that you guys liked it. Tell me, I would love to hear your interpretations of this story. This is definitely not an easy one. There are many, many chapters, but like I said at the beginning of the live stream, nothing happens for no reason. So all of the things that the young man had encountered, they were for a reason. From the beginning, from the three animals to the knots of the head, and all those things, all of them happen. No, the giant, all of those things happen to him for a reason. Now you're going to find something really, really interesting. This is something very common in stories. 3 is the magic number. So in the original tale, obviously, yes, there are 3 animals, and he actually battles 2 giants and a crone, not just one giant. There's also the 3 heads of the serpent. So and the 3 jewelries. So there's a consistency in the number also hidden within the tale. And if you read a little bit more carefully old folk tales, you're going to find that there are certain numbers that are recurrent in these tales. So it's really interesting when you start to delve deep into it and you start to unlock all the secrets. You're going to find that these things are recurring, and it happens for a reason. So yeah, this is my interpretation. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm going to be finishing up because it is a bit late, and I like to keep things on time. I do have some news. So the good news is I have okay. So it's like two good news, two good pieces of news. One is that well, sort of. I have been accepted in Sheridan College, but I'm on the waiting list. So for the production production design and technical program of Sheridan College in Ontario, Canada, I have to sit through an exam, but I will be placed on the I've been placed second on the waiting list. So if two people do not show up for the semester, I will be going to college this year. That is one. And the second one is I have a job. I finally found a job. I got myself one, and I will be moving. I will be moving to Canada. I will be moving to Canada this coming August, the beginning of August. So I obviously this will be affecting my my live stream at least for that week's for at least 2 weeks. I will be offline with live streams, and most likely I won't be joining after the weekend. If I can, I will try, but most likely I won't be able to because the implications of this move is they are very, very extreme. I'm moving to another country, so that's going to be really exciting. I want to thank you guys all for the support. You have seen my ups, you have seen my downs. You have seen me when I was a little bit down, when I had the news that that the program was full in Sheridan College. You guys have been with me when I said, keep your fingers crossed, please pray for me. I have a job interview. I really want to thank you, every single one of you, for the support that you guys have given me throughout these past months. Thank you, TD, for your congratulations. Thank you, Sam and Dunadan. It really means a lot for me. And I will be keeping up with you guys. You guys know that I will. I'm always posting. I'm always posting, so you guys will probably know what my life is like. And I do have 2 surprise projects in the making. One is already at the seamstress. I hope you like him because it is a him. Hopefully, he will be finished before I leave. So that's one of the things that I told the seamstress, like, you gotta finish it before the beginning of August because, like, I'm not gonna be staying here. And she was really happy. So he's already being dressed. And the second one, I am working on her because it's her. A very, very simple project, but very, very beautiful. It's coming out really lovely. I'd hate to part with it, but if I do, I'm going to be happy if it arrives to a safe place, to a happy home. So anyway, guys, thank you so much. It is almost an hour. It is 9:10 here, probably 10:10 Eastern. I want to thank you all for being there. I will see you guys next week for a final story of Oceans, and probably a final story of Unlocking the Lore before my big move. So with that, I want to thank you all, and I hope you guys have a great night. Sam, you have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye.